After I closed our last car loan, I came across my wife's disgusting post on Reddit. Married to a pathetic, spineless loser, he'll never amount to anything. I fake every smile, every compliment. Sometimes I wonder how much lower I can go before I cheat with a real man. I saved the screenshot, watched her mock me in the comments, and closed the tab. Said nothing and started working on my revenge plan, pretending everything was fine. My phone was flooded with missed calls last night. Last Friday, we made the final payment on our car loan. A milestone we'd been chasing for 5 long years. I expected it to feel like a moment of triumph. A weight finally lifted, but the celebration felt off. We had this half-hearted toast with some old Prosecco I found in the back of the fridge. I laughed, trying to make it a thing, but my wife, Clara, barely smiled. If anything, she looked relieved, like someone who had just escaped a trap. I noticed her constantly checking her phone, her fingers dancing over the screen in rapid bursts. She barely looked at me. When I suggested we go out for dinner to mark the occasion, she shrugged and said she was tired. So I let it slide. I settled on the couch with some random YouTube videos, trying to ignore the knot twisting in my gut. Clara disappeared into the bedroom early, the glow of her phone lighting up the hallway. The next morning, she seemed like her old self again, cheerful, making coffee, leaving my mug out just the way I like it. She even started talking about redecorating the living room, scrolling through Pinterest, and discussing color palettes we didn't need. I tried to match her energy, but a quiet dread had already started to creep in. There was a laughter, a light, breathy giggle, escaping her as she stared at her phone, but every time I glanced over, she quickly tilted the screen away. Just a dumb meme, she would say, brushing it off, but she never showed me. That wasn't like her. We used to share everything, the bad jokes, the silly videos, it was part of our thing. So why now was she hiding? Maybe I should have let it go. But I couldn't. Something didn't fit, and it gnawed at me. A strange paranoia began to take root. I told myself I was overthinking it, that maybe she was just stressed. After all, we'd been through a lot together. We met volunteering after a hurricane hit Louisiana. A chaotic, desperate place where strangers became friends fast. She was with some church group, always the organizer, the fixer, while I was just a guy with a couple of buddies trying to help out. We spent almost 2 weeks rebuilding the same house, and I remember thinking I'd never met someone so driven, so eager to be the one in charge. Over the years, that part of her only grew. Clara was always the planner, the decision-maker. I used to think it was one of the things I loved about her. She always knew what she wanted. But slowly, it felt like she always knew what I should want too. And whenever I tried to suggest something different, she would have this way of twisting it, making me feel like I was wrong for even trying. It was subtle, almost invisible, like being tied down by invisible strings. That weekend, my suspicions twisted tighter. Clara kept laughing at her phone, never sharing what was so funny. When I asked, she waved it off. Just a silly group chat. I tried to ignore it, but I couldn't shake this sense of being locked out, like a stranger in my own marriage. Sunday morning, I went to use my laptop for some work, only to find it dead. Not wanting to waste time, I grabbed hers. Clara was outside, pacing the backyard, talking to someone on her phone. I didn't think much of it, but the moment I opened her laptop, her Reddit account was still logged in, and that's when the ground under my feet seemed to shift. The first thing I saw was a post, a long, ranting post titled, "Married to a Spineless Loser." My heart skipped. I didn't even register that it was hers at first. But the username, it was her. Her username, the one I knew. I clicked. I read. And each sentence was a knife twisting deeper. According to her, I was a pathetic, ambitionless failure. A burden she had to carry, like a third child. We don't even have kids. She wrote about how she had to manage everything because I was too passive, too weak. There was no mention of the things I actually did for us, the sacrifices, the quiet support. It was all about her struggle, her burden. To strangers on the internet, I was nothing but a joke, a cautionary tale for other wives. I sat there, numb, my hands shaking. I quickly took screenshots, not even sure why. Maybe because a part of me needed to know it was real, that it wasn't some awful dream. I even snapped a few photos with my phone, just in case. I heard her voice coming from outside, still laughing, still in control. When she came back in, she was all smiles, asking if I wanted to order takeout for dinner. I looked at her, and for the first time in years I felt nothing. Just a cold, empty silence. "Yeah, whatever you want," I muttered, forcing a smile. She barely glanced at me, scrolling her phone again. I stood, walked to the bathroom, and locked the door. I stared at my phone, at the screenshots. I read them again, and with each word, something in me twisted, then snapped. It wasn't just that she was talking behind my back. It was the way she performed it, like I was nothing but a prop in her life. A punchline, a clown in her little show. I thought of all the times she had made those jokes in front of our friends, the subtle digs at my expense. At the time, I had laughed them off, trying not to look too sensitive. But now I saw them for what they were, tiny cuts, all leading to this. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Not like she expected. Instead, I swallowed the bitterness, forced a smile, and went back to the living room. I asked her if she wanted to watch something together. She smiled, nestled against me on the couch, all while her phone kept lighting up with new messages. I didn't react. I didn't speak. I just stared at the wall, my mind racing, already planning. If she thought I was a joke, a burden, she had no idea who she was dealing with. I didn't confront Clara. Not directly. That would have been too easy, too predictable, exactly what she expected from me. Instead, I went the other way. I played the part she wrote for me a little longer, but this time with a smile that never quite reached my eyes. I started small. Those tiny, thoughtful things I used to do for her, they just stopped. No more filling up her car with gas when I took it out. No more swinging by her favorite bakery just because I thought she'd like a pastry with her coffee. I didn't bother grabbing her dry cleaning. The quiet, invisible care I'd always shown her became a ghost, something she could no longer take for granted. At first, she didn't notice. Clara was too wrapped up in her own world, her phone always buzzing, her laughter at those dumb memes she never shared. But soon, little cracks appeared. "Hey, did you forget to pick up the dry cleaning?" she asked one Thursday, standing in the kitchen with a puzzled look. "Nope," I said, taking a sip of my coffee without even looking up. "Didn't seem like something you'd need me to handle?" Her mouth tightened for a second, but she said nothing. Not yet. It was almost funny watching her confusion grow. I kept it subtle, leaving a mess in the kitchen after making myself a snack, skipping out on the weekly grocery shopping trip, leaving her to manage the overflowing laundry basket. None of it was dramatic, but it was a slow erosion of the convenience she'd always taken for granted. Then I went a step further. Money. Clara was obsessed with budgeting, tracking every dollar, planning for every expense. So I opened a new checking account. Quietly, without a word. I redirected my direct deposit, leaving just enough in our joint account to cover half the mortgage and nothing more. The first time she noticed was when the utility bill bounced. "Did you forget to transfer money for the bills?" she texted me while I was at work. "Nope. Just splitting things up from now on." "Makes it easier," I replied, short and to the point. That evening, when I got home, she was waiting for me in the kitchen, arms crossed. "Why didn't you tell me you were changing things?" she demanded. "I thought you liked being the one who organizes everything," I replied, walking past her to grab a drink from the fridge. Her expression shifted, confusion giving way to frustration. But she didn't push it. Not yet. I could see it wearing on her. For someone who thrived on control, on managing everything and everyone around her, Clara was suddenly losing her grip. Her friends noticed too. She'd always been the social planner, the one who arranged girls' nights, organized weekend trips. But without my silent support, driving her to pick up supplies, helping set up, handling the details she never bothered with, her plans started to falter. One Saturday, she tried to organize a small get-together at our place. I did nothing. I didn't clean, didn't help set up snacks, didn't even bother putting on music. Our friends arrived to a disorganized, chaotic mess. Clara's forced smile cracked by the end of the night, her patience stretched thin as she scrambled to keep everything together. After everyone left, she tried to confront me. "Why didn't you help?" she snapped, tossing a pile of half-empty glasses into the sink. "I thought you liked handling things your way," I said, my tone flat, almost bored. Her face flushed red, but she didn't argue. She knew something was wrong. But I wasn't giving her an explanation. Not yet. Then came the final touch, her reputation. Clara had always cared about how people saw her. She was the one with the picture-perfect social media presence, the one who curated her life like an Instagram feed. but I started quietly shifting the narrative. When her mom called to ask if we'd be visiting for Sunday lunch, I said, "Ask Clara. I'm not her manager." When her best friend Elizabeth texted me about a weekend trip Clara had mentioned, I replied, "Not sure. You'd better check with her." I watched as her carefully crafted world began to wobble. But it was the group chat that finally pushed her over the edge. Clara had been planning a Vegas trip with her 3 best friends for months, hyping it up, bragging about bottle service, spa days, the works. A perfect little getaway to show off how fun her life was. So, the night before they were supposed to book, I simply texted the group chat. "Hey, can't make it after all. Work's a mess. Y'all have fun." When I walked into the bedroom, she was livid. "What the hell is wrong with you? You said you'd go," she hissed, her voice barely above a whisper but sharp enough to cut. "Things change," I said, shrugging, already pulling off my shoes. She reached out, not hard, but enough to push me back a step, a desperate move, trying to provoke me. But I didn't give her the satisfaction. I just looked at her, calm, unbothered. "You wanted independence. Congratulations. Enjoy it." I walked past her, leaving her standing there, fists clenched, her breathing uneven. Her carefully constructed world was slipping through her fingers, and she didn't know how to stop it. She tried to play the victim to her friends, whining about how I was being distant, how I'd changed. But I said nothing. Just let her talk, let her spin her little web. Her mother called me. "Is everything okay with you too? Clara seems so upset lately." "Ask her," I replied, hanging up without waiting for a response. Her friends began to look at her differently. They were used to her complaints about me, her little jokes at my expense. But now those jokes felt mean, desperate. Even they were starting to see through her. One by one, they stopped asking her to organize plans. Stopped texting her first. Clara's world was shrinking, her control slipping like sand through her fingers. At home, she grew tense, her frustration seeping through every interaction. She tried to provoke me, little digs, passive-aggressive comments, but I remained a stone wall, cold and silent. Each time she tried to get me to react, I just stared back with that same distant, empty look. Every time she laughed at her phone, thinking she was clever, thinking she was in control, she had no idea that I was watching, waiting. That I had seen her true face. And I wasn't done. Not yet. Clara's world was crumbling and she could feel it, but she didn't understand why. Not yet. She thought I was just being moody, maybe going through some sort of midlife crisis. But it wasn't that. I was simply done pretending. I was done playing the part of the silent, obedient husband who just nodded along. Her desperation became a constant presence in our home. At first, it came as passive-aggressive jabs. "You never do anything around here anymore. Are you even trying?" she muttered one morning, slamming a cupboard just a little too hard. "Guess not," I replied without even looking up, keeping my voice calm, almost bored. Her frustration was a palpable thing, thick in the air. It wasn't supposed to be like this. She was used to having the upper hand, to being the one who directed the flow of our lives. But now every attempt to control me seemed to slide off, leaving her grasping at nothing. Desperation soon turned into guilt trips. She began playing the martyr. One Sunday morning, she brought me coffee, something she hadn't done in years. She stood there, awkward, trying to smile. "Thought I'd bring you your favorite," she chirped, trying to sound cheerful. "Thanks," I said, taking the mug but not bothering to look at her. The silence between us was a chasm, and she felt it. Then she tried the sympathy angle. I overheard her on the phone with her mother one evening, her voice shaky. "I just don't know what's wrong with him, Mom. He's been so distant, so cold. I don't know what to do." Her mother must have said something comforting because Clara let out a dramatic sigh. "Maybe he's just going through something. Or maybe I'm the problem." I almost laughed. Almost. But I stayed silent. I wanted her to keep wondering, to keep feeling that tightening noose of anxiety. But the more desperate she got, the more reckless she became. It wasn't just in private anymore. She began acting out in front of her friends. At one of our friends' game nights, she tried making a jab at me, her old way of keeping control through those little jokes at my expense. "Well, Zach wouldn't know a good movie if it jumped up and bit him," she quipped, laughing a little too loudly. But this time I didn't smile. I didn't laugh. I just looked at her, my gaze cold and steady. The room went quiet for a moment, an uncomfortable tension settling in. Elizabeth, her best friend, cleared her throat. "Hey, Clara, maybe let him pick the next one, huh?" she said, trying to ease the awkwardness. Clara's smile faltered. I could see it, that crack in her confidence. It was no longer just me pulling away. Others were starting to see it too. Her social circle, her carefully curated group of admirers, began to notice the strain. Elizabeth texted me the next day. "Hey, is everything okay with you too? Clara seems off. Ask her, I replied, leaving it at that. Clara's mother called me next. Zach, dear, is everything all right? Clara's been so upset lately. She says you two are having issues. Ask her, I repeated, my voice a blank slate. Clara tried a different tactic than affection. The same woman who spent months mocking me online now hovered around me, touching my shoulder, trying to hold my hand. She even suggested we should go to counseling. I think it would help, Zach. We can talk things through, get back to being us, she pleaded, her voice dripping with false sincerity. I don't think that's necessary, I replied, my tone neutral. Don't you care about our marriage? She snapped, her calm mask slipping. I care about not being lied to, I answered, staring right through her. Her face went pale. For a brief moment, I saw panic in her eyes, but she masked it quickly. Lied to? What are you talking about? She tried to laugh it off, but the crack in her voice betrayed her. Nothing, I shrugged. Just something I've been thinking about. From that moment, Clara was a woman on the edge. She tried desperately to maintain her image, both at home and in front of others. She doubled down on her social media presence, posting cheerful selfies, pictures of our perfect life, all while I watched, silent, cold. But I wasn't done yet. The final blow was coming. One quiet afternoon, while she was out, I finally did it. I took those screenshots, the ones of her cruel, mocking Reddit posts, and I sent them to her mother and her two closest friends, Elizabeth and Sadie. No message. No explanation. Just the raw, unfiltered truth. Then I turned off my phone. When Clara came home, she was frantic. Her phone was buzzing nonstop. Her mother had called 3 times, her friends were texting. She looked at me, her face a mask of horror. What did you do? She whispered, her voice already cracking. I told the truth, I said, standing up and walking past her. She grabbed my arm, her grip desperate. You're trying to ruin me. No, Clara. You did that yourself. She began crying, at first quiet sobs, then a full-on wail. She followed me around the house, begging me to explain, to fix this, to make it go away. But I just went to the kitchen, made myself a sandwich, and walked out onto the porch, letting her screams become a distant background noise. Within an hour, her mother called me. Zach, please, what is this about? Clara says you're twisting things. Ask her. She wrote it all. Elizabeth texted me. I can't believe it. Did she really say all that about you? Yes, I replied simply. Sadie tried to call, but I ignored it. I didn't need to justify anything. I had given them the truth, nothing more, nothing less. Clara's world, her perfectly manicured image, was burning down around her, and I was the one who lit the match. Clara tried everything. Denial, rage, tears. She cycled through them like a storm, one crashing into the next. Her world was burning, and she couldn't put out the flames. But that wasn't my problem anymore. Her friends turned distant. Elizabeth, who once laughed at Clara's stories about me, now barely responded to her texts. Sadie tried to defend Clara at first, telling her, everyone says things they don't mean sometimes. But even she fell silent when Clara kept trying to spin the story, acting like she was the victim of some grand misunderstanding. Her mother called me 3 more times, each one a desperate plea. Zach, you have to fix this. Clara's losing everything. Not my problem, I replied, hanging up without another word. But Clara didn't give up. If anything, her desperation made her bolder. She showed up at the door of my home office one evening, red-eyed, her makeup smudged. Please, Zach, can't we just talk? We can fix this. I can make it right. Her voice was a broken whisper, and for a moment, I almost felt something. Almost. But then I remembered every word of those posts. The way she had paraded me as a joke for strangers. The way she had made me feel like nothing. There's nothing to fix, I said, turning back to my computer. Her hands trembled. How can you say that? You're ruining my life. I didn't ruin anything, Clara. I just showed people who you really are. You're twisting everything, she screamed, her voice cracking. You've always been so passive, so weak. And now suddenly you want to destroy me? I looked at her, and for the first time in months, I didn't see the woman I fell in love with. I saw a stranger. I didn't destroy you, Clara. You did that yourself. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture frame fell from the wall. I stared at it for a moment, then went back to my emails. I was already planning my exit. I wasn't going to drag this out. I made arrangements with my brother, packed my things in silence. Clara tried to act like everything was normal, cooking my favorite meals, wearing that dress she knew I liked. But I just sat at the table, ate in silence, and left without a word. The morning I left, she stood in the hallway, blocking the door. "You can't just leave," she cried, her voice a desperate, thin wail. "We built a life together." I stared at her, calm and steady. "No, Clara, I built a life. You built a show, and I'm done playing my part." I brushed past her, my suitcase rolling behind me. She grabbed at my arm, but I shook her off. "Don't touch me," I said, my voice colder than I thought possible. As I walked to the car, I could hear her sobbing, her voice rising and falling in waves. I didn't look back. At my brother's place, I finally told him everything. Showed him the screenshots, the posts, all of it. He shook his head, his expression a mix of shock and disgust. "You should have done this a long time ago, man," he said, handing me a cold beer. "You can crash here as long as you need." I nodded, feeling a weight lift. I finally turned off my phone for the first time in days, just letting the silence settle. I slept better that night than I had in months. But Clara wasn't done. The next morning, I turned my phone back on, and it exploded with notifications. Missed calls, text messages, voicemails, Clara, her mother, her friends. Even her sister had tried reaching out. "You're abandoning me," one text read. "I'm sorry, please come home," another begged. Then, just as quickly, "You're the one ruining everything." The messages swung wildly between apologies, blame, and rage. I left them all on read. My brother glanced over at me, his brow furrowed. "She's really losing it, huh?" "She always was," I muttered. "I just didn't see it." I went back to our house that afternoon while Clara was at work. Packed the rest of my things. Took the last of my clothes, my books, even the old records she used to laugh at. As I was leaving, her car pulled into the driveway. She stepped out, her face a mask of shock, then anger. "So that's it? You're just walking out?" I tossed my duffel bag into the trunk. "I told you, I'm done playing your little game." "Game?" she shrieked, her voice raw. "You're the one who ruined everything." "No, Clara. I just stopped pretending," I replied, climbing into the driver's seat. "You'll regret this," she screamed. But her voice was already fading as I pulled out of the driveway. I didn't even look in the rearview mirror. The fallout didn't take long. Clara's friends started distancing themselves. Some blocked her, tired of the constant drama. Others stayed, but only to watch the train wreck from a safe distance. Her own mother, who had defended her at first, eventually went quiet. I blocked her number, blocked her on social media, removed every trace of her from my life. I wasn't going to let her claw her way back in. The last I heard, she tried to tell people I was emotionally abusive, that I had abandoned her. But the screenshots I had shared told a different story. People knew the truth. And I moved on. Got my own place, found a new routine. For the first time in years, I felt free. Not just from her, but from the quiet suffocation of pretending everything was fine. Every now and then, I'd get a text from an unknown number, a new plea from Clara, a desperate message trying to twist the narrative again. But I never responded. I didn't need to. Her words meant nothing now. One evening, as I sat on my small balcony watching the sunset, I felt a strange sense of peace. I wasn't angry anymore. Wasn't even bitter. Just done. Clara had built a life on lies, on control, on manipulating the people around her. I had simply shown everyone the truth. And now I didn't have to pretend anymore. If she wanted a perfect life, she could keep pretending. But I wasn't going to be a part of it. Not anymore. I raised my glass to the setting sun, letting the cool breeze wash over me. I had walked away from her chaos. I had walked away from her lies. And I wasn't looking back.